Today, we are going to be reacting to Sandy Munro interviewing Jason Cammisa. I went through and picked out the most interesting clips. Let's jump into it.
What were your initial thoughts? I mean, a lot of people took an initial look at the CyberTruck and said, that's going nowhere. And others like me said, oh, man, I got to have that. Where were you on that scale?
I thought it was a joke. I genuinely thought it was a joke.
Really?
Yeah, and that's the hardest part of this video is that I'm getting a lot of pushback for how positive it was. And I keep hearing from people like, oh, this was clearly a paid advertorial by Tesla. It is 100% wasn't. This was a regular piece of editorial. But this is the lesson for me is that we all go in, we see a shape, we see a car, we know a car company, we know the leaders of the car company and everyone involved, and we make our judgments beforehand. But as a journalist, it doesn't matter what my personal opinions are. And it really doesn't matter what my preconceived notions are about the car or the people involved or anything else. I have to go in objectively. And I showed up at Tesla. They reached out and were amazing I'm so thankful for the opportunity, but they were like, listen, we want you to help tell us this engineering story. And I thought, well, you. No one tells me what story to tell, right? Sorry, I probably shouldn't.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he said
Think of the children.
My mouth didn't move when I said, but they, I thought I'm not going to tell your story. I'm going to review a car. That's my job. My job is a bid actor, and I'm going to put myself in the mindset of the person who wants this product, and I'm going to evaluate it. Oh God, sorry about the Apple weird things. I'm going to evaluate it based on what the consumer expects this thing to do. That's it. Walk in the lab, and I see the truck, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing looks exactly like it did on stage, which is outrageous, whether you like it or not. Not personally my kind of thing. And then I spent the day having my mind blown over and over and over at the ingenuity behind this. So we put the line in the video that I recorded afterwards. We had to go back and redo a segment because I'm like, you guys have all made up your mind about whether you like or hate that Cybertruck. But the craziest thing to me was that it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter what it stands for. That's not my job. My job was to tell you what's underneath it. And I just was in disbelief, absolute disbelief. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, when we got the first Model 3, I said, I've never seen a pile of ever come into the marketplace like this. And then I went through and I said it had gaps that you could see from here to the moon, or it was built like a 1980s Kia. And
Daihatsu, yeah.
it was just until I got a chance to drive it. Like that was my first impressions. Then I got a chance to drive it. Then we yanked off the body. Holy mackerel. All of a sudden, everything changed. And that's where Tesla's got it all, or had it all. It was always under the skin. You can't see anything. It looks like a jelly bean. It's just another car. But when you pull the top off, when you pull a body off, and you start looking at all of the other stuff that they've done, that's when it became brilliant. And the Tesla guys hated the Tesla fans. I had a 40 cal under my desk. So I'm not you there. Oh man. Some of the stuff, we called the FBI. We have secret status here. I have to report it.
So I think the reason that the Cybertruck is starting to make an impression on people in the automotive industry and people outside of the Tesla community finally is it seems like the expertise of what Tesla is doing in engineering has finally made its way to the exterior of the vehicle. And now when you see it, you can't help but wonder what the heck is that? Whereas before, even what Sandy said was Model 3 and Model Y, he thought it was just another vehicle until he ripped it apart and he realized, holy smokes, these guys are doing things completely differently. And so my buddy just saw a Cybertruck in Vancouver yesterday, and people are texting me that know nothing about Tesla. They're like, dude, this freaking thing, this Ninja Star is driving through the streets. And it's want to know a little bit more about Tesla? This thing is going to be their advertising staple for years.
Yeah, I love that observation that, it's finally the innovation and just no holds barred, rethinking things from first principles. I don't care how things have been done in the past. I'm going to make it the best way it needs to be made. Ethos has made it all the way to the exterior of the vehicle in that same way. in a way that really breaks expectations. Because the Model S, it looks like a good car. It's beautifully designed. Franz did an amazing job with that, but it doesn't look on the exterior like it's that much different than anything else on the road until you get inside and you drive it. And then, same for the Model 3, the Model Y, and the Model X definitely has some unique features, but when you see it driving around the road, like we know what it is, but there's a lot of people that wouldn't be able to tell it apart from, like a BMW. And so, yeah, I love that point that this looks so much different than anything else. And it is, it's very polarizing, but people can see that engineering function over form kind of ethos that goes into the product, and it smashes expectations. Yeah, a Ninja Star driving down the road that's a great term for it. And these are two people, like we said earlier, that both skeptics didn't originally love Elon or the company Tesla, didn't have positive impressions of the company from the outside, but then they get their hands on the product. Not only do they get their hands on the product, but they get those core insights into the engineering that makes a Tesla what a Tesla is, and just have their minds completely blown. And not only that, but these are premier experts in the field of automotive. Danny Munro has torn down everything from everybody. He knows all the companies. He knows how all of them make their cars. He knows how all of their organizational structures work and what the deficiencies are. And Tesla won him over with the quality of the core technology that makes an EV an EV. And they're getting better at the other things that traditional autos are okay at. And they blow them out of the water where it matters. And then Jason, he's like, I thought this thing was going to be a joke. But then I drove it and I talked to the engineers and it blew my friggin' mind. And I can't tell the world that this Cybertruck sucks, even though that's what I thought I was going to do coming into this review.
And I also learned yesterday that Jason was a lawyer, and that probably plays into his virtue that I have to treat every company fairly. And both of these guys are just the most wildly entertaining speakers that I've come across. And so I'm glad to have them come over to Tesla. And of course, Sandy is pretty much an OG, so I shouldn't even be saying that. But anyways, let's keep it going.
Well, he wasn't at first, and
So let
that
me
was
ask
the
you a
point that
question.
he made there. That when he first started tearing down the Model 3, just like he said, he was dogging on it. He said this thing is crap, and people were like, the hardcore Tesla fans were not happy with him, and he literally did get death threats from Elon fanboys because he was being harsh on the vehicle. But that was before he got all the way into the guts of the vehicle. That was just looking at the body in white, the physical construction of the metal components of the car, and then the way that they did their exterior body panels and all that. And it wasn't until he got into the electronics and the battery pack and those components, the motors, especially the electric motors that they made, like all of those things, which are that's the bread and butter of what an EV is. He was blown away. He's like, this is not only better than everybody else, this is like leaps and bounds, orders of magnitude better than everybody else. And so that's when the sentiment in the Tesla community shifted towards him, was they did see that, he was being objective, but he also, I appreciated the fact that he didn't hold any punches about the quality of the body in white, because he was right. It did suck. That was one of the reasons why production hell was what it was at the time. And so I appreciate that he really is objective about the quality of the build and the engineering that goes into the vehicle. He says exactly what is true. When he encounters things, he's like, why are you doing that? That's not very smart. He still says that. But in the end, the quality of the product overall as an EV is what wins over people who are, objectively trying to evaluate the vehicle based on facts and merit and substance of the product itself.
And I was saying it yesterday, it's scary for guys like Sandy and Jason, who have these large automotive like hype beast audience who are just all about ICE vehicles. But if you don't start covering EVs eventually, I mean, the whole market's going EVs, you know, by 2030 might be 60%, and beyond that, we're getting to 90%. So at some point you do have to say, look, audience, what they're doing over here is interesting. So I'm going to talk about it, and hopefully their audience follows. But it's a risk and it's a leap, and Jason has just taken it, and we're happy to have him.
You've said some of this stuff, but if you had to categorize what you didn't like about it, what would that be? I mean, is it the face, or what is it?
No, I think from an objective standpoint, I mean, again, it's like what I like, what I don't like. What I don't like for the consumer is the visibility. I just think that this shape has a bunch of compromises built in that traditional pickup trucks don't. There's pluses and minuses, but I think the traditional automotive driver would prefer a bigger greenhouse and better visibility, certainly towards the back.
There's none. There's nothing in the back.
There's nothing.
Zero.
And I like that the nose is actually quite a bit lower than most traditional pickup trucks. But you genuinely, I think you said this, somebody said this also. I thought I was going to hit everything. You can't judge where the front of the truck ends. And that's just, look, people wear high heels and they're not going and doing marathons in them. This is a styling statement. It exists for a reason, and there will always be compromises in anything that's high style, from everything from sports cars to high heels. So I didn't particularly care for that. I'm not sure that the traditional pickup truck buyer will take advantage of a lot of this truck's benefits versus a regular pickup. So if I sort of think of R1T as the sort of best in class, most modern traditional pickup truck design, and CyberTruck are the things that make CyberTruck better. The steer-by-wire, some of the efficiency, obviously the speed. Is that enough to compensate for its visibility drawbacks, its insurability? Obviously, we don't know yet what it's going to cost to insure because we don't know what it's going to cost to fix. But, I like the idea of this exoskeleton, and sure, great. I think it's wonderful that they're thinking differently, but I worry a little bit about keeping it looking fingerprint free and scratch free. And I just don't know if that trade-off is worth it to the customer. I'm not the customer, but TBD. I have a question for.
So what do you think, Hans? Like, do you think this will be the best-selling truck in America? Do you think that tradesmen and are going to get there? Do you think that all the people that are polarized by it right now are going to get there? Do you think they're going to get the cost down to 40,000?
Yeah, that last part is the key to the whole equation. If this costs exactly the same as every other truck long term, the adoption will be decent because the performance is great. It's a better vehicle in a lot of ways for some people. Like, every person is going to be different on what it is that they want from a truck. And so it will win on some metrics and it won't win on other metrics for various people if the prices are all, high. And, that's one of the things is that trucks keep getting more and more expensive. That said, the way that the engineering has gone into this vehicle, once they reach scale of 250,000 vehicles plus 500,000 vehicles plus even more, and if you understand Wright's law and you understand EVs, like batteries are going to get cheaper over time, not more expensive. They're going to have more range over time, not less. They are going to have more power over time, not less. These technologies are getting better, and at the same time they're getting better, they're getting cheaper. And so, by the time Tesla's producing these things in huge volume, a lot of the stuff that goes into the vehicle that drives its cost of goods is going to be cheaper. Obviously, then they also get the economies of scale, and their production method for this is overall cheaper. No paint, a various number of things. Like, I think the cost to produce a Cybertruck is going to be between what it costs to produce a Model Y and what it costs to produce a Model X, and much closer to Model Y than Model X. And when you factor that in, what you realize is that while ICE big, Ram 1500, F-150s, Silverados, these vehicles are getting more expensive and the Cybertruck is getting cheaper, the economics and that's just starting economics. You factor that in, plus total cost of ownership, especially for people who are using these vehicles for some sort of business application, like cost of operations. These things are going to be just head and shoulders cheaper and more reliable than the competition that's ICE. They're also going to be cheaper than the electric competition that's just not going to be as good. It doesn't have as many of the design efficiencies in it. And so, yes, like it's going to win. It's going to sell that many units at a minimum because the economics are going to be that much better than anything else. There's not going to be anyone who can compete. And in fact, they're going to continue to be like the price will stay higher than it needs to be, which means that margins will be higher than other Tesla products just because they won't be able to meet the demand on the supply and demand curve. And so, either way, it's a win for Tesla investors and shareholders. Either they have more margins, and higher profit per vehicle, and they don't sell quite as many, or they bring the cost way down, but they sell so many that it's ridiculous in total unit, volume ends up making for a lower margin product. But yeah, the overall functionality of the vehicle is just going to make it a huge hit in the marketplace.
Yeah, it hits on a couple of American staples. So it's weird that a lot of these middle-class guys are so averse to change. It's going to be the toughest truck. It's going to be the most made in America truck. It's probably going to be the truck that draws the eyes of most ladies on the street. So
it's going to be the truck
those
wins
are the three
in the
big
event of a
ones.
crash. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're going to give their opinion on this subject as well here.
Question for you though, Sandy.
Yeah.
So you have a Lightning. I had a Lightning there for that production because I think it's a great traditional pickup truck.
Absolutely. I think it's the best real, traditional pickup truck. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that too. And then you also want a Cybertruck.
Yes, because I like to go hunting, and that's the wrong. I don't want a Lightning to go hunting. I want that truck to go, because you know what? If I take the Lightning into the woods, what am I going to wind up with? A scratched mess. And then I got to deal with the guys here. What the hell did you do to that truck? And I got to deal, and worse yet, my wife. You can't take care of anything. That's why we can't have nice things. So at the end of the day, with stainless steel, I will run over trees. I won't care. I will go through a couple of pine trees. I won't care, because you know what? Anything I do to that truck will do really zero. And I mean that sincerely, zero to that truck. And I will take my buffing wheel outside, and guess what? It's gone. In fact, that'll be the shiniest part on the whole damn car. And I had Rubicon after Rubicon after Rubicon. They were all beat up, every one of them. I'll never beat that. I'll never have to beat that car up. And I never washed it. With the Rubicon, I never saw it. I mean, it would be frightened if I took it into a car wash. So
that's an interesting viewpoint, because my question was, is this a supplement to, or is this a replacement for a traditional, simple, tough, but genuinely built like a 1950s car pickup truck? Or is it a Lamborghini for people, which is obviously why I brought that Lamborghini to that show? Is it something of a styling statement? And you're saying it's different. It's actually, it's got a different set of capabilities. I'm a little bit concerned about what happens when you scratch it. I mean, we did try our hardest and we didn't scratch it, but something will.
It's okay. So here's something I've been told, Sandy, shut up and let the other guy talk. So, but here's one thing you need to know. That thing, they start out with martensitic material. So that's stainless steel.
He means austenitic right here when he's saying,
and that means it's non-magnetic and things like that. But
what was that?
Right there, he said martensitic, and he just misspoke. He means austenitic right now, and he's going to change. What they end up doing to it when they cold form it is they turn it into martensite. So that's when it becomes martensitic. So he's using the wrong word right now for anyone who is a hardcore material science engineering nerd. they'll realize that, hey, that's not what he means. So yeah, sorry to interject for the 2 people in the audience who ever understand what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm sure they'll be indebted to you.
But I have a lot of rifles. And you know what? If I take one of my rifles and I shoot at a piece of 1.8 millimeters thick steel, stainless steel, boom, it goes right through it like a hot knife in butter. That didn't. So I was thinking to myself, these guys are lying. And I'm not a fan of that. So I couldn't understand how it was that they could make that happen. Then they took me into the factory. I went on a factory tour, and they have a straightening area, and they take the austenitic steel and they work harden it, and they turn it into martensite. I can't shoot through martensite. And that's when I saw that, when I saw what they were doing, and when I said, what happens when you work harden it? Well, it gets harder. They didn't tell me until later it's martensite. And if you know something about, if you'd have gone to school for it, that's a little, but anyways, you should have taken,
I don't know anything about
taken the what do you call it course, the metallurgy course. Anyhow, there's nothing like it. That's why when you see that bullet hit it in slow motion, it blows up completely. That's supposed to happen on the other side of the plate. It's not supposed to blow up on the front of the plate.
Right,
so anyways, that to me was a big deal. And that means I can't scratch it. So, all right. So there's a question here. Is the CyberTruck, do you think it's...
Sorry, I was pressing the wrong button. I couldn't stop it, but now we've got it.
Yeah, so I mean, the long and the short of what he said there is they actually change the molecular structure of the stainless steel by compressing it. You know, they smush it so much that the atoms actually get closer together and the metal gets harder. It also means that it's more likely to break instead of bend, but they have just enough flex left in the metal. They basically harden it so hard that all they can do is those couple of little bends that they do. With if they did any more forming of the metal than that it would just break. And the thing that they get out of doing that is, like you said, it's so hard. It's almost diamond hard. It's ridiculous. And this is not a property of stainless steel that's common unless you have much higher content of carbon in the metal, which the reason for that is the little tiny carbon molecules actually help create this weird molecular structure that martensite is, that's different than just standard stainless steel. That is the austenitic stainless steel. And they're able to achieve this weird shape of molecular structure just through extreme pressure and low temperature. And so that's the, like, an industry, it's not an industry first, but it's very uncommon. Almost no one does what they're doing. And so it was very inventive for them to be able to take stainless steel and not only, like, because one of the things that we learned in Sandy's last factory tour video was they originally talked about making this out of 3mm stainless steel, and they were able to achieve all of the strength and hardness and rigidity characteristics that they were trying to get out of that material from 1.4mm thick stainless steel sheets everywhere except for the doors. And then the doors, they made 1.8mm thick because they needed a little bit of extra strength there in order to deal with the side impact crash tests. So this very inventive way to take a stainless steel and compress it, work harden it, and make it harder and stronger than it would normally be, and then do all of these steps with it, allows them to make a lighter truck and then a truck that doesn't scratch. You know, they remove the need for paint, obviously, by using stainless steel in the first place, but now having it so hard, not only do you not have paint, it's almost impossible to scratch. And all of that is because of the way that they actually make the panels. And so it's not just a property of the material itself, it's a characteristic that they put into the material by the way that they manufacture these panels.
I was shocked when I found out that the CyberTruck was lighter than the Rivian. And I think some of the things I'm most curious to see over the next couple of months during this ramp is if it goes smoothly, it's more likely they'll use this material that they've created again in the $25,000 car. And that will help us make estimations about what the shape of that car is going to be. It'll probably be more triangular because you can't really probably make it like a big circle oval type vehicle if because that'll require a lot more bending. Do you think that making the $25,000 car, you take away the paint, but you don't need the toughness as much as you do with a truck? So what would you guess material wise they're going to use?
So that is a great question. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts on this. I just going off of what Franz said, that, if you're using this in another application that's not a truck, where that toughness is not so important, that made me think that they're going to go in a different direction from using the stainless steel. That's so, part of the reason that they can only bend the stainless steel in one direction is because of how thick it is. So they could either do a different type of stainless steel that you wouldn't have to paint, but it wouldn't be as strong. It would be more like a normal body panel. Because the inners of those doors, those are also made of stainless steel. It's just a different stainless steel and it's not as thick. And those have all the complex curves, and they're, formed with stamping dies the same way that a lot of other parts are made. So you can do stainless steel without having to do these giant, ninja star origami shapes. And so I'm thinking that, it could very well be stainless steel. It wouldn't surprise me if it is, but there are also other options that they could go. Tesla's incredible at their material science. They can invent some new alloy just for that purpose that doesn't need to be painted. And so that's where I think that, the default option will be a no paint option, but it won't necessarily look in the Cybertruck style. Another clue for this is in the investor presentation where they have the different vehicles, and you can see kind of the covers over what we assume is going to be the Tesla van, and the shape on that looks much more rounded. And so I'm thinking that the Gen 3 platform of vehicles, if it's not some sort of a work specific vehicle that needs to be that tough on the outside, that it won't be painted, but it also won't look like the Cybertruck. So the Cybertruck is kind of its own design aesthetic. And the only other place that we'll end up seeing that will be another purpose-built, super tough work type vehicle.
Roger.
I think it's going to become a working man's truck.
I love that I don't know the answer to this question. Like,
don't give you your best guess. Come on. You're a journalist. You got to have some kind of an opinion.
This is the crazy part of this truck. I typically do know whether I'm pretty good at predicting car success based on what I think the customer's expectations are. On the surface of it, the answer is absolutely not. It's a showpiece, and people want it because of what it looks like and whatever. But there's so much substance behind that.
Yeah.
And there are so many small benefits to the traditional pickup truck buyer that I think, or to the workman, that I wouldn't be surprised if they start rolling out into job sites. I also wouldn't be surprised if people are embarrassed to do so, because it sends a message. And this is a problem with just, the car is an avatar. The car is it's a Halloween costume that we put on and we drive out into the world, and it says something about who we are and what we find important. And I worry that if I were a contractor and I pulled up in a job site and, people would say, oh, that's $100,000 truck, and that's Elon Musk, and that's it's just associated with all of these things. Meanwhile, a Lightning is $100,000 and no one looks twice at it. So that's going to be a factor. I don't know. And I love that I don't know. I can't wait to find out.
Well, here's what I think. I think that the F-150 Lightning will lose out on about 37 sales. I don't think I did that kind of shit, and you want to have just something normal when you drive up to somebody's house and say, yeah, we can do that siding, or yeah, we can put your roof on. If you come in a Cadillac If I'm driving up in a Cadillac or something that everybody knows is really expensive, then all of a sudden the whole atmosphere changes, and I don't think I can afford you. Don't even bother writing that code out.
Exactly.
So I believe that, but I wouldn't. I'm not buying it for that. I'm buying it for, hey, you know what? I can get the quads in there. Hey, you know what? The bikes fit easy in that. I can sleep in this, so I can drive out to somewhere in the bush and stay warm. And in the morning, instead of trooping for who knows, a mile and a half or something like that to get to a quiet spot or a blind where I'd freeze my ass off, I suspect I'm going to have a microwave in mine and a coffee maker, maybe espresso.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to have in there, but I can guarantee you, I'm older now. I'm old, period. The can go away.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I love this segment for a couple of reasons. First, like I agree with Sandy on how like this is going to be an incredible off-road machine. I don't need a pickup truck. I don't have a whole lot of use cases where the bed comes in hand. Like every now and then it would, but you know we have an SUV and just a normal sedan. But I want this vehicle, and that's one of the things that I want to do with it. Is I would love to camp out in the woods. I'd love to get off road. Like, one of the things that I even spoke about with Herbert earlier this week about was I think this is going to make off-roading accessible to a whole new demographic of people who normal off-roading is so complicated and such a technical thing to do and so scary and intimidating that they're just never going to get into that. But in the CyberTruck, like the software of the CyberTruck is basically the iOS of off-roading. It makes everything intuitive, everything simple, everything easy. The software handles the complexity. And then you add that into the fact that, yes, the outside of the truck is virtually indestructible. You can go anywhere you want and never have scratches or door dings. And then the ability to bring your power with you and have an incredibly well air-conditioned cab, whether it's hot outside or cold outside. The ability to lock the tonneau cover and the ability to have the pop-up tent in the back, like all of these things, all the third-party accessories that are going to come with it are going to make it incredible for that use case, whether it's people going camping, hunting, fishing, just general outdoor stuff, hiking, just getting out into nature. And because it doesn't have that motor, like when you're out in nature, it's not making a bunch of noise. And so, whether you're trying not to scare things away because you're taking pictures or because you're shooting at things, like it's not going to be the thing that, the motor is not going to be the thing that scares prey or animals away. So all of that, 100% agree. I go back to the conversation earlier when we talk about the work truck specific, like I think Lightning is going to sell okay, that's fine. But I think that in the long term, the economics of the Cybertruck are going to make it a no-brainer for the work crowd. And that, the statement that people are making by rolling up to a work site in the Cybertruck, that will be a statement at first when the trucks are so expensive. But as we get through the production ramp and they come down, it's not going to make that same statement. You're going to see so many of them around that it's not going to be that, fashion element of that. And the other thing is there will be a lot of contractors who do adopt this just because it is advertising like for free. You can throw your this is one of the things that I've thought about. I ran a service business for a couple of years before this, and I wanted a Cybertruck for our techs to run their service calls in, because everyone is going to be looking at that thing and everyone is going to be calling the number that's on the back of that tailgate if they need whatever, if you're an electrician or you're a plumber or you're a contractor or you're a cleaning service, like any of those people, the attention that will get for a while will be incredible. And it's during that, initial phase that Jason's talking about, where he's thinking a lot of people are not going to adopt it because they don't want to make that statement. On the flip side, there will be a number of other people just based on the economics and not caring about who Elon is that absolutely will. And then the last thing that I'll say is, Jason does live in California, and this anti-Elon sentiment right there is real high right now. And so maybe in his pocket, in his culture, like that will be a harder decision for people to say yes to. But the United States is a big country, and there's a lot of places where Elon's a lot more popular now than he used to be, where rolling up in a Cybertruck will actually be good kudos to you as a contractor, and you'll get extra business for it. So, yeah, there's a lot to be said.
Yeah, it just takes one guy in a town who's an electrician or whatever. I think that was some comment on Farzad's video at one point. But I mean, I drive a 1998 Nissan Frontier, and I also used to run a service business. I did junk removal. And so just knowing that you could just throw things into your Cybertruck and not worry about any dents or scratches. But also, I mean, my Frontier's got 350,000 kilometers on it. And the thing I'm most worried about right now is the rust, because it's rusting out the body because it's so old. It's actually a truck is as old as I am. But if you have a Cybertruck, this is a segment of this Sandy Munro Jason podcast that we didn't include. They're talking about, other than the body, which is not going to rust, everything can last for a million miles. Like the battery pack, they went through every part and they were like 2 million miles, 3 million miles. I don't see why this couldn't last that long. So it's like, how long is this Cybertruck going to last? And if I was in the woods, to go back to your very first point, if I'm in a Cybertruck, I don't even think a bear would be able to penetrate my vehicle if you were hiding from a bear. If you were in a Ford F-150 Lightning, you'd probably just rip off the glass and aluminum and just eat your face. But in a Cybertruck, dude, it's a fortress. It's a fortress, and that's security.
Yeah, the only part that I'd be worried about is the glass. And so, yeah, like if you're going into bear infested woods, you get a glass upgrade and good to go.
But they did what did they do with the glass of the Cybertruck? Because I know it's stronger.
Yeah, so it's borosilicate glass. It is very strong. It's able to withstand hail. I think they did class 4 hail, and I don't even know what that is, but it's like giant baseball sized pieces of hail shot out of a gun really fast. And it withstood all of that just fine. So I'm not exactly sure, how that would hold up. That's just I just know the glass is weaker than the stainless steel. And so if a bear's coming at me, that's the part that I'm worried about.
Gotcha. And I know we're approaching an hour, but I got one more question because it's another segment that we didn't include. If you got in a front crash where you crashed maybe the front casting, do you think that you're going to have to total your vehicle if that front casting gets whatever the word is, compromised?
So I think it is definitely very possible. It's more than likely that front casting will have to be replaced. Honestly, I don't know how hard that's going to be, but I do think there will be some, if it's not too severe, I do think that they will be repairable with a little bit of creative work. One of the things about the way that those crash tests looks is that it doesn't look like that damage will propagate down the rest of the vehicle. That damage is pretty much localized to the front as long as it is just a head-on collision. In which case, once you fix whatever those front parts are, hopefully you don't have to deal with issues all throughout the rest of the vehicle because it's so rigid. I don't think that you're going to get frame warping the same way. As long as you don't damage your battery pack, that whatever you do there in the front should hopefully be able to repair the whole vehicle. So it really does remain to be seen. That those are big questions, and we won't fully know the answers until we see them happen. And so that, pedestrian safety is kind of another big open question. But I know there's been a lot of back and forth about, oh my gosh, the Cybertruck is going to murder pedestrians. But the thing that the Cybertruck has going for it that all these other giant SUVs and pickups don't have, which are also super deadly to pedestrians, is best in class automatic emergency braking to just not hit the pedestrian in the first place. And I think while the shape of the vehicle may be scary to some as far as pedestrian safety is concerned, the best thing to do is just not to hit them in the first place. And Teslas are definitely going to be much better at that than any of the other vehicle manufacturers.
I have one more question on that point. Did you see the study today that came out that says that Tesla drivers are involved in the most amount of accidents by electric?
Yeah,
Electric
so
just
they
published
were
the
reporting,
article, but the study was by someone else.
Yeah, so the thing, I would go back to, I believe it was Rob Maurer's Tesla Daily. I think he looked at this and basically dug into some of the numbers, um, and they just don't have a good representative sample set. They're basing all of that off of people who are applying for insurance to some company, and well, who like the reason that people are applying for non-Tesla insurance in areas where Tesla insurance is offered is because they're already disqualified from Tesla insurance for some reason. And so, Tesla has the best data. They are picking all of the best drivers to insure, and anyone that they feel like is too risky to add to their policies, they reject. And so those are the people that are then going out to get insurance quotes from these other companies. And so while like, I just don't know of any data that really supports that is independent and like verifiable. And so the source of the data and its ability to generalize across Tesla's fleet is very suspect. And I just don't believe that it represents the actual fleet.
And when was that Rob Maurer comment? And
It was one of the ones in the past couple days.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Probably not yesterday. Probably the day before. I'm thinking it was the Tuesday episode, more than likely.
It's not easy for me to Google right now, but I'm curious what percentage of Tesla drivers are on Tesla insurance. I don't know if you're able to Google this before we end, but
yeah,
if you don't know off the top of your head, then we can just end. But I don't know if you're wanting to take questions. I am not wanting to take questions today because I'm still recovering from my cold.
We could do a couple real quick if people have them. I do need to run soon. But yeah, I don't mind answering, say, 3 or 4. And I'll try and keep my answers brief.
I saw that Hit That Bid just commented. I don't know if you know Yashu, but I actually ran into him.
Yashu.
I ran into him at a coffee shop the other night, and I recognized him because I've watched his channel before. And I was like, "Are you Yashu?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then we ended up talking for an hour, and we just talked about YouTube and got to know each other. It was awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, Yashu is awesome. Probably hard to find a better person than he is. So
that's great. I liked him.
Let's see. Do we have any questions in the chat? I'm not seeing anything. So if we don't have anything that pops up, we may be able to just go ahead and cut it off there, I think.
Sounds good. That was great.
Well, I had a blast. Thanks for helping to organize this and then run the stream and cut out all those clips. So
I see Rudolph has a question for you. Wait, I'm gonna click on it to see if it comes on screen because yeah, it does. That's cool.
Just a little bit of hair gel. Well, probably he may be talking about how shiny it is. So I have like a little light that's up above my head. So you learn to do fun lighting tricks when you do lots of YouTubing.
Yeah, I'll have to pick up a couple. Alrighty. We're getting some funny ones now. We should just end the stream.
I see. Well, let me hit RC's comment there real quick. He said, asked if we saw the Jason Cammisa Matt Farah pod. Yes, I did. I love that one. Basically, Jason Cammisa gave Matt Farah, who is he's an automotive guy, but he also has drank the I hate Elon Kool-Aid, and so he had crapped all over Jason Cammisa for his review of the Cybertruck. He's like, there's no way that all this stuff is true. Like, he's just going easy on the truck because he got early access, blah, 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 blah. And afterwards, he kind of felt bad and he reached out to Jason, and Jason's like, no, dude, everything I said in that review was 100% true. And I'm going to bring a 20-page stack of facts and I'm just going to beat you over the head with it for 2.5 hours. And that's what the episode ended up being. And it was great because just the topics that they covered, the fact that like Jason went to town on, there's so many things that we talk about, and most people are engaging in things at the level of opinions, and like most of what we've said today deals primarily with opinions. There are some things that we've talked about that are facts, and we haven't really tried to separate out for the viewers which parts are opinion, which parts are fact. That's an area where just as a society we probably need to get better. And Jason's point was like, when I'm doing my icons episode, I am dealing with facts. These are, as a journalist, things that I have personally independently verified. I've gotten down to the source material. I know exactly what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. And so when I say a fact that I know to be a fact and I can prove as a journalist, and you come at me and say, no, that's not right, but on a basis of mere opinion, that's crap. And so he called Matt Farah out on it. And, I do have to give Matt Farah props for taking his beating like a man on his own podcast. And so that was cool. And I appreciated that from him and helped me respect him a little bit more.
Yeah, I invited you to come on yesterday and talk about it with me, but it's too bad that didn't work out. That was where I had the latency issues yesterday, but it led to this, and that's really exciting. I don't know if you want to cover this last question before we go, or if you just want to end it from George. It's up to you.
We can
that's
hit it
all right,
real briefly. I would say that I would love to see this. I don't know that it's a feature that is going to prevent people from buying the truck because it doesn't have it. Currently, it doesn't. I think that there's going to be some third-party modifications that allow for this. But yeah, like I want to be able to camp in the back of the vehicle, and I would love to be able to bring air-conditioned air from the cabin into the back of the bed. And so having something where you could open, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a fold-down wall, but it would be nice, to be able to have some sort of a pass-through from the cab into the bed. So.
All right. Sorry, I have to look past my camera to see the comments. Jacob, what's your family background? British Isles. Yes, I'm half British, quarter Irish, quarter Norwegian. What about you, Hans?
A bunch of stuff. So I've got a little bit of Danish, a little bit of German, a bunch of English, some French. Kind of all over the map.
Yeah.
Even some Canadian Indian, not American Indian, Canadian Indian.
Oh, interesting. You'll have to come up to the great land sometime. We'll be this quarter and we'll have meaningful impact on. Okay, let's take this question because it's a great question quickly before we go. Guys, no more questions. Stop sending questions. How many Cybertrucks do you think will be delivered this quarter, and will it have a meaningful impact on earnings?
On earnings, absolutely not. If they can make it to 100 Cybertrucks this quarter, I'll be impressed. Probably somewhere in between 50 and 250 would be my guess. And I don't know that we're even going to know. I don't think they're going to break it out on earnings. And so other than people doing some high-tech sleuthing, that'll be the only way we find out more than likely.
We just saw 40 at Giga Texas, and there's like 10 days left of the year. So we'll probably see around 100. Yeah. Well, that was awesome.
The question that I have is just how fast can they get those in the hands of customers kind of all over the country? So they've definitely produced well over 100.
Yeah. Well, that was great. We'll have to do it again, Hans. And thanks, everybody.
Yep. Enjoyed it.
In. All right.
Have a good one.